In this video, I'm going to show you some excellent visual and subliminal imagery and character work in Eli Roth's 2015 erotic horror Knock Knock, stuff that you probably missed when you watched the film. Now, I covered Knock Knock for Halloween this year. That was with Harry Robinson of the Lotus Eaters.
My dad is actually really swarthy.
And that conversation being live took its own turns. We ended up, because of our own particular interests, focusing mainly on the hidden and rather disturbing messages that can be seen in the film, the potential, I say that for legal reasons, hidden purpose of remaking an obscure film and making damn sure that everyone knows the events take place in Hollywood. Now, I'd recommend you watch that conversation. I think that was very interesting, but it didn't focus as much on some of the excellent filmmaking and visual storytelling that Eli Roth has demonstrated here. So this video is going to do that. I'm going to show you how the film builds up a series of emasculating humiliations that send beloved heroic Keanu Reeves straight into the cup chair, right in the corner, Nintendo Switch in hand.
I wasn't flirting. I was being a gentleman.
Yeah, I'm sure she was a poor, helpless 25-year-old.
A far cry from the stoic and dangerous John Wick. In Knock Knock, Keanu is playing Evan, and that is his wife, Karen. She's an artist, and she's the reason why, even before we're in their house, we start seeing phallic statues. Get used to these. There is another one. Now, as part of this, we're going to have a little house tour, hopefully one that Hassan won't steal. The director, Eli Roth, is going to walk us through their home, partly so that we can familiarise ourselves with the layout of what is essentially the sole location of this home invasion film. You know, we've got to know the layout so that the hide and seek aspects work, and we've got to know how close people are to each other. But it is also, before we even meet Evan and Karen, to cement the impression that Evan is emasculated, domesticated, long-housed, and sexually frustrated. I mean, why else would he spend his rare free time without the wife and kids home to himself, rattling these skanks, when BritBox has got all of Sharp, all of it? You could be watching it right now. Instead, well, never mind. So back to the house tour and some of that subtle characterisation that we're being shown. In these photos, Evan is in the back, seen in a group shot, behind two male statues, two men in front of him. And he's very swiftly blurred as the character moves. He goes into the background and we focus on everyone else. His wife, his kids, wife again. He doesn't get a solo photo. So the message we are being given is that Evan takes a backstage role. He is not the focus. Now, moving beyond the photos, we are going to look at the dongs again, or the phallic statues. There is another one right there, and then there's another one here. And if you think I'm reaching here, if you're thinking, well, that's just a multicoloured abstract tentacle, no, you're reaching. Well, Lorenzo Izzo's harlot, Genesis, specifically does this to the statue later, just in case you missed it. And as you will see, this is far from the only phallic statue that Keanu's wife has put in the home. There are some more dongs there. There are three flaccid lads next to the photos with Evan, swiftly followed by a larger phallic statue, and then, once again, another huge tribal phallus right there. So Keanu Reeves is not only long-housed, he is schlong-housed. Very humiliating. How does that give us a characterisation? Well, it's basically saying that his wife is introducing these more vitalist masculine elements. He's sort of crowded out by them. He is not the provider of that. I hope it's quite obvious what's going on there with that. You don't need to decode that much more. Moving on at about 3 minutes 16, we are getting more family photos. This time they are staged portraits. But very much like the photos we saw earlier, Keanu Reeves is seen in a caring role. He's kind of isolated in this case. He's the only one still having a kind of caring purpose. He's holding their dog Monkey. He's effectively still being domestic, whereas no one else has to do that. We move past yet another phallic statue, this one cut. And then we get another family portrait. This one is showing Keanu doing his monster shtick. This is a bit of a shtick he has with his family where he's monster, okay? And they're all hamming it up. But what the portrait is showing you is that he is in opposition to his family. They are grouped up together against him. The next family portrait, when we see the writing credit, arguably has him in a much more masculine, more protective role. However, you could also argue that in this one, he's cowering behind his wife, who is looking unfazed. She's looking boldly and directly into the camera. She's sort of challenging the viewer. She isn't looking to him for protection. And so I think it's quite easy to see this as actually she is protecting him. He is cowering behind her and clinging onto her. He is very proudly, clearly displaying his wedding ring, whereas she is not. So very much showing he is taken. It's almost like she's challenging you. Are you looking at my girl? Anyway, this is stuff we have all seen before we have even entered the bedroom. And within the bedroom, unsurprisingly, we're going to get a lot more key imagery about Keanu Reeves being emasculated. Inside the bedroom, Evan and Karen are canoodling, and within seconds, his wife has dominated him and been a bit too rough with him. He's just a delicate maid. Please, Karen, take it easy. She's leaving him whimpering and mewling, and that is because he's had some surgery on his shoulder, but the imagery nevertheless shows us that she is dominating, he is weak. You'll also notice that above him, above his head on the bed railings, is a target, right above him. Now, is that an accident? Maybe, but it's kind of handy, especially as this is a film in which sort of sex is used as a weapon, sexuality is used as a weapon. So in the bed, there being a sort of target, an assassin's target, there a gun sight target, however you'd like to call it, a crosshairs. So having some crosshairs on the bedside, that kind of works. That works thematically. Now, when it looks like Evan is going to actually get some satisfaction, his kids interrupt. They come straight in. There are no boundaries here, no locked door. So it's kind of telling you that Evan does not have control of his domain. This was meant to be a thing for him. It's Father's Day, as we're told. He is denied satisfaction because he hasn't been able to set boundaries. Oh dear, it's not looking good. Now, we'll take a moment to look at his children and his family, because Eli Roth has done several things in the casting to isolate Evan and make him an outsider, as in the second family portrait. So Evan, Keanu Reeves, is brunette. Everyone else is blonde. Okay? Now that gives you this kind of hint that maybe he isn't actually their dad canonically. Maybe they were Karen's kids before they got together, but I don't think so, given the timing that we hear for their relationship later, that he's been with her 14 years. So we're going to assume they're his kids, but nevertheless, they take after her. He is the only brunette. In your head is this idea that, are they really his kids? Because they aren't really taking after him. And this is intensified further with the Spanish angle, that is, his wife is Hispanic and the children speak Spanish fluently with her and with her assistant.
Comida de monkey, por favor.
Yeah, mommy.
Gracias.
De nada.
Only Evan is unable to keep up with this. He speaks very basic Spanish at most, but the fact that he even is having to speak it is showing that he is having to make the compromise. But nevertheless, the fact that he is basically purely Anglophonic, only speaking English, is isolating him further from his family and diminishing his status. He is at a disadvantage, being just an English speaker. Get with the times, honestly. The fact that the assistant here, Lewis, probably the best character in the movie, certainly hilarious at performance, comes in and is able to instantly bond with the wife by speaking Spanish, instantly speaking in a way that Evan can't understand. It's not looking good. It's another move towards a chair, isn't it? Okay, so that is another aspect subtly in the casting and in the use of Spanish there to again degrade Evan's status.
I need to use the chair.
Back in the bedroom, the children have brought him a cake for Father's Day and they mash it in his face. Now that's just fun and games, right? But there might be another meaning to this. In keeping with this characterization we've been talking about, Evan has just been denied a Father's Day treat with his wife, and he's left with cream all over his face. You know, it's a chocolate cake, but the chocolate doesn't really show up on his face, only the cream does. Now, the sight of him with all this white cream over his face, as if someone else had been satisfied by Evan, you know, you see what I'm getting at, come on. Anyway, Evan, having chased the kids off, is hoping to pick things up again, you know, get what he was originally working on in the bed. But he is gone to the bed, not been followed by his wife, and he is effectively pleading from the bed. He's noting, telling us that 3 weeks have passed since they've slept together. And that is helpful context for the audience, but it is also telling us that he is very aware of how long it's been. It's not just to help us understand why he might be a little more easily persuaded by the two girls rocking up later, but it does also tell us that he's kind of keeping score. It's something he's very aware of. The fact that he just knows it's 3 weeks tells you that he is sexually frustrated, and that's digging at him. Now, his wife then stresses the importance of her job for why she can't satisfy him. You know, she's instantly a bit more dominant, you know, that the fact that her job is coming first is much more traditionally masculine. And that's why she can't satisfy him, but she promises to later. And then she sucks some of the cake filling off his finger. That is, of course, suggestive of another act that he might enjoy. But the visual reference shows us Evan is almost being mocked there. He's deprived of satisfaction. He's having to make do with only the finger getting attention. And he tells us, he says out loud, that's enough to keep him happy. You know, that little thing is enough to perk him up again. He's very much dependent on her decisions here. He has not got his internal locus of control, as we would call it. He's relying on external loci for satisfaction and status. This is further degrading him.
Knock knock!
Oh hey, that's the name of the movie. Okay. Now, Evan at this point, talking to Karen's assistant, emphasises his weakened state due to surgery. His right arm is weakened. This is something we saw in the bedroom.
I'd offer you a hand, but all I can lift is this coffee.
We even saw the scar. Now, symbolically, the right arm is your sword arm, your conquering arm. Evan not being able to use that right arm is symbolically meaning he can't conquer, he can't fight, and that is deeply emasculating. And it might also imply that he can't crank his Harwood, leaving him extra frustrated, so you can read that into it as well. It becomes plot relevant later, of course, but it's also very helpful in the characterization that we're talking about here. These opening minutes of the film filled with little symbols, little hints, visual clues that give us a certain perception of Evan. And shortly after all this, even his daughter is mocking him. Weak. Obviously, children take the mick, but notably, it's his daughter who mocks him.
I wasn't flirting. I was being a gentleman.
Yeah, I'm sure she was a poor, helpless 25-year-old.
Yeah, helpless.
Yes, weak stuff, weak stuff. So Roth here, through little exchanges, has done plenty to show us that Evan is emasculated, and therefore might be particularly eager to reclaim his masculinity and be sexually dominant when an opportunity presents itself. And Roth, far later on, once we've already got this image in our head, we'll be quite far into the plot when we see this, but I thought this was so good that I thought I have to include it. There is a great visual metaphor for Evan's situation later in the film, about half an hour in, via another statue. In the corner, a very muscular torso with a sort of beast-like, atavistic, vital, primitive features is howling, right? No arms, so it can't do anything, but it's howling in frustration. And in front of it, where it's looking, is a lamp, and that is suspended from something that kind of looks like a rod. Now, this statue effectively could be read as giving us the impression of a carrot on a stick. The kind you'd use in the cartoon to encourage a donkey, right? So the beast can see what it wants, it can see that carrot, but it can never get it. So it's just howling in frustration. That is Evan, right? His more masculine urges, frustrated, can't be satisfied. The carrot on the stick is there just tormenting him. Yeah, he's a beast howling in frustration. Talk about monster, all right? Okay, now those are just some of the things. As I said, the conversation for Halloween went in a very different direction. I'd really encourage you to watch that video. But I feel I wouldn't be doing this film justice if I didn't cover some of these really quite clever bits of filmmaking that Eli Roth snuck in. I do rate him. He is not a flawless filmmaker in any way. He has got distinctly his own weaknesses. He kind of likes to sabotage his own movies by sudden, unwarranted and jarring turns to the comedic. Certainly he does that in Knock Knock as well. But nevertheless, he's a good filmmaker. He knows how to encode interesting things into his movies, and I just wanted you to see that here. Alright, to round off the video, obviously I do have to admit that Keanu Reeves getting cucked isn't the most overtly Christmassy topic for a video. But when you really think about it, Christmas is kind of about another dude slipping into your house while you're asleep, drinking your booze, giving your wife something that'll satisfy her, and leaving once he's emptied his sack. So, I don't know, I think it kind of works. Merry Christmas.